I've always followed the golden rule of ride-sharing. Check the license plate, check the car model, ask who are you here for before getting in. I did all of that on the night of November 14th. The driver said my name, the car matched, and the plate was correct. And yet, 10 minutes later, I found myself locked in the back seat of a Honda Civic, speeding down Interstate 95, watching my driver cancel the ride on his phone while maintaining eye contact with me through the rearview mirror. It was around 2 a.m. in downtown Philadelphia. The air was biting cold, the kind that hurts your face. So when the car pulled up, I was just relieved to get out of the wind. The interior smelled intensely of vanilla air freshener, likely masking the scent of stale cigarettes. The driver, a middle-aged man who introduced himself as Greg, seemed normal enough at first.
He had a generic talk radio station playing low. But the vibe shifted about 5 minutes in. The silence grew heavy. I noticed he kept adjusting his mirror, not to see the traffic behind us, the roads were empty, but to look at me. His eyes were wide, unblinking, illuminated by the harsh streetlights we passed under. Every time I looked up from my phone, he was already watching me. I lived in the suburbs, a standard 20-minute drive north. I knew the route by heart. The panic set in when Greg missed the exit for the highway I needed. "Hey, you missed the turn," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't answer. He just kept driving straight, heading toward the industrial district near the shipyards. "Greg?" I asked, louder this time. "The GPS says to turn around." That's when I heard a notification ping on his phone mounted on the dashboard. I leaned forward slightly and saw the screen. The Uber app was gone. He had canceled the ride. "Why did you cancel the ride?" My heart began to hammer against my ribs. Greg finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost monotonously so. "App was glitching. Don't worry, I know a shortcut. No charge for tonight." "I don't want a free ride," I said, reaching for the door handle. "Let me out here." I pulled the handle. Nothing. I pulled it again, harder. It gave no resistance, disconnected from the latch. The child locks were engaged. "Sit back," Greg said. The car accelerated. We were doing 80 in a 45 zone now, tearing past abandoned warehouses and fenced-off lots. I pulled out my phone to call 911, but my hands were shaking so bad I dropped it between the seats. As I scrambled to retrieve it, the car swerved violently into a gravel lot and slammed to a halt. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating a rusty shipping container about 50 yards away. But what made my blood freeze was seeing another car parked next to it. Its lights flashed once. Greg unbuckled his seatbelt. "Phone, now," he demanded, turning around. He held a small canister of pepper spray in his hand. I didn't hand it over. Instead, I screamed, putting all my adrenaline into a single kick. I drove the heel of my boot squarely into his nose. I heard a sickening crack, and he dropped the spray, clutching his face, howling in pain. I didn't wait. I scrambled over the center console into the front seat while he was blinded by pain. I unlocked the front passenger door and threw myself onto the gravel. I ran. I ran toward the main road until my lungs burned, flagging down a passing patrol car 10 minutes later. When the police went back to the lot, the Honda was gone. But they found zip ties and duct tape on the ground where the car had been parked. Uber confirmed Greg was using a stolen account. To this day, I don't know who was waiting in that second car, but I know they weren't there to pick up a package. You know how Uber drivers sometimes try too hard for a 5-star rating? They offer you water, gum, or charge cables. It's usually just awkward, but harmless. But last month, I had a driver who offered me something else.
a detailed description of my own morning routine, moments after I got into his car. I was leaving a late shift at the hospital in Phoenix. I was exhausted, still wearing my scrubs. My driver, Marcus, arrived in a pristine black SUV. The inside was immaculate, leather seats, classical music playing softly, and the AC set to the perfect temperature. It felt more like a limo service than a standard Uber. "Long shift, Sarah?" he asked as we pulled away. "Yeah, 12 hours, I sighed, leaning my head against the cool window. "Nurses work too hard," he said sympathetically, "especially on the ER floor. Must be tough dealing with the trauma cases you saw today." I froze. I hadn't told him I worked in the ER. I hadn't told him I was a nurse, though the scrubs were a giveaway. But the trauma comment? That was specific. "How did you know I'm in the ER?" I asked. He chuckled darkly. "I just have a good intuition." The drive should have taken 15 minutes. We were on the highway when he started asking questions that felt wrong. "You live alone in that apartment complex, right? The one with the broken gate?" "Excuse me?" I sat up straight. "I noticed the gate was broken when I dropped someone off there yesterday." He corrected himself quickly, but the tone was off. I looked at his profile picture on the app. It matched, but something was different. In the photo, he had a beard. In person, he was clean-shaven. "You look different than your photo," I muttered, my hand gripping my pepper spray in my pocket. "People change," he murmured. Then he clicked a button on the door panel. The thud of the central locking system echoed in the quiet cabin. We weren't going to my apartment anymore. He had passed my exit 2 miles ago. "You missed the exit," I said firmly. "I know," Marcus replied. "I just wanted a little more time to talk. You never reply to my messages on Instagram, Sarah." My stomach dropped. I didn't have my real name on Uber. I used a nickname. And I certainly linked my Instagram. "Who are you?" I whispered. "I'm the guy who watches you get coffee at Starbucks every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:15 a.m., he said, turning his head slightly. His smile was too wide. I finally decided to make my move. We were heading out into the desert now, away from the city lights. I knew if I stayed in this car, I wasn't coming back. "I'm going to be sick," I yelled, clutching my stomach and making retching sounds. "Pull over! I'm going to throw up in your nice car!" He hesitated. The obsession with his pristine car outweighed his obsession with me for a split second. "Don't you dare puke in here." He slowed down on the shoulder. The second the speed dropped below 20 miles per hour, I didn't wait for him to stop. I unlocked the door manually and tucked and rolled out onto the asphalt. I scraped my arms and legs badly, but the adrenaline masked the pain. I scrambled up the embankment into the desert scrub, hiding behind a large cactus. Marcus stopped the car. He got out and stood on the side of the road, staring into the darkness where I was hiding. He didn't chase me. He just stood there for a full minute, silhouetted by his headlights. Then, my phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. A new message from a user named Watcher88. "You're faster than you look. I'll see you next Tuesday at 7:15. He got back in the car and drove off. I moved out of my apartment the next day, but I still can't drink coffee without looking over my shoulder. Technically, this wasn't a kidnapping, at least not by a human. I've told this story to the police, to my therapist, and to my parents. They all say I fell asleep and had a nightmare. But nightmares don't leave physical bruises on your wrists, and they don't leave mud on the floor mats of a car that hasn't stopped moving. It was a rainy Tuesday in Seattle. I called a lift to get home from a friend's house. The car was an older sedan, rattling slightly as it idled. The driver was an older woman, gray hair, glasses. She looked like a librarian. It put me at ease immediately. "Nasty weather," she said. Her voice sounded distorted, like it was coming through a bad speaker, even though she was 3 feet away. "Yeah," I replied, scrolling through TikTok. I didn't pay attention for the first 10 minutes. The rhythmic sound of the windshield wipers and the rain lulled me into a daze.
It was only when the streetlights stopped flashing by that I looked up. We were on a road I didn't recognize. It was pitch black outside. No houses, no street lamps. Just trees pressing in close to the road. Ma'am? I think the GPS is wrong," I said. She didn't respond. She didn't move. Her hands were a 10 and 2 on the wheel, rigid as stone. "Ma'am?" I leaned forward to tap her shoulder. Her skin was ice cold, not cool, freezing. Suddenly the car's navigation screen flickered. Instead of the map, it displayed a static-filled image of the inside of the car. It was a live feed of the back seat. I saw myself on the screen, looking terrified. But in the screen, there was something sitting next to me. A dark, shadowy figure. I whipped my head to the left. The seat next to me was empty. I looked back at the screen. The figure was closer now, its hand reaching for my leg. "Stop the car!" I screamed. The driver slowly turned her head. Her eyes were rolled back, completely white. Her mouth opened, but it wasn't her voice that came out. It was a mechanical, grinding noise.
Rerouting. Rerouting. Destination not found."
The car accelerated. The speedometer needle spun wildly, 60, 80, 100 miles per hour. But the trees outside weren't moving that fast. It felt like we were driving into the ground. I tried the door, locked. I banged on the window, screaming for help, though I knew no one could hear me. On the screen, the shadow figure's hand wrapped around my wrist. At that exact moment, I felt an icy grip on my actual wrist. I looked down. Invisible fingers were squeezing my arm, digging into the flesh. The car slammed into something, or nothing. Everything went black. I woke up lying in the middle of a muddy forest trail. It was morning. My clothes were soaked. There was no car, no driver, no road. I had to walk 4 miles to find a gas station. When I checked my Lyft app, the ride history showed the trip as completed. The pickup point was correct, but the drop-off point, it was coordinates for a cemetery in a town that had been flooded and abandoned in the 1950s. The police found tire tracks where I woke up. They ended abruptly in the middle of the trail, as if the car had just vanished into thin air. And the bruises on my wrist? They were in the shape of handprints, but the fingers were twice as long as a human's.